Hey friend, looking to you just to greet you, bless you today. I hope it's a good day for you. We're opening scripture, and as we do so, we're going to jump into a story that takes place right after the death of John the Baptist, the cousin of Jesus, and the feeding of the 5,000. So this is where the story begins for us today. After the people had eaten, Jesus immediately made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowds. After sending the crowds away, Jesus went up onto a mountain to pray. When evening came, he was there by himself, but the boat was in the middle of the lake, being buffeted by the waves, for the wind was against it. About the fourth watch of the night, just before dawn, Jesus went out towards the boat, walking on the water. When the disciples saw him, they were afraid. "It's a ghost," they cried out, and they were terrified. Immediately Jesus said, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." Then Peter said, "Lord, if it's really you, tell me to get out of the boat and come to you on the water." Jesus said, "Come." Peter got down out of the boat and walked toward Jesus on the water. But when he saw the wind, how strong it was, he became afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me!" Jesus immediately caught him by the hand and said, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" When they got back in the boat, the wind died down. Then the disciples worshiped Jesus, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." That's the end of our story. At the start of the story, you see that Jesus sent the disciples ahead of him and dismissed the crowd on his own, then went up the mountain by himself and spent all night in prayer. It seems that Jesus could have gone with the disciples or just stay where he was, but it's interesting. He chose to send everyone away and went to pray. Of course, he just lost his cousin. But I wonder what we might learn about Jesus, that he took time away from the crowds to pray. And after praying all night, he went out walking on the water, taking a stroll on the lake. What we learn about those disciples, that when they saw Jesus, they didn't think, "Oh look, Jesus is walking on the water." They thought, "It's a ghost," and they were terrified. I don't know, might you have been terrified too? I think I might have been. But notice that Jesus immediately calls out to them, recognizing their fear. He doesn't say, "Why are you afraid?" He doesn't say, "Why don't you have faith?" No, he says, "Take courage. You know who it is. Don't be afraid." I wonder what impact that had on the disciples. It's interesting that Peter doesn't know if he should trust Jesus or not yet, if that's really Jesus. So he puts a fleece out before Jesus that's kind of a surprising one. "Lord, if it's really you, tell me to get out of the boat and come to you on the water." I wonder what Peter expected would happen. I wonder what impact it had on him when he heard the voice of the ghost saying, "Come." Does it surprise you at all that Peter got down out of that boat onto the water and began to walk towards Jesus? I mean, Peter believed in Jesus, but it seemed like Jesus believed in Peter. He believed Peter was capable of getting out of that boat and walking towards him on the water, and Peter did it. I don't know, have you ever put something out before God and said, "Lord, if you do this, help me and I'll do this thing, whatever this thing is." But then you get out in the middle of that thing and it becomes a little overwhelming. It's not like that may have happened to Peter here. He got out in the middle of walking on the water and suddenly became aware of the elements around him and became afraid. I love this story. I love the language here where it says, beginning to sink, Peter called out, "Lord, save me." When was the last time you began to sink in water? I mean, don't you just sink in water? Like if I jump into the pool, I just go down. I don't begin to sink. I am under. So it's almost like the water didn't have normal consistency yet under Peter's feet. As he was walking by faith towards Jesus, it became firmer and didn't lose all of its firmness immediately. It seems like Jesus wasn't caught by crowds or the need for applause or the necessity of having his disciples around him, but was willing to take time alone. How often do you let yourself take time alone? How often do you just get away by yourself? Breathe in the air around you. Breathe in the word. Breathe in prayer. Jesus seemed to think this was important. And I don't know if you ever get in a situation where you feel like you've bit off more than you can chew. Look up. Jesus is right there with you. He's going to catch you by the hand. May you be encouraged today from this story, but I'm imagining something even more hit you. Some other insight may have struck you from this story. May that insight sustain you today. Have a great day.